What if I told you that the potato, one of the world's most essential food staples, owes its very existence to a chance encounter with the ancestor of a tomato? It sounds like a plot from a science fiction movie, but it's a true story of ancient hybridization, genetic mashups, and evolutionary ingenuity that took place millions of years ago. Today, on Fun Facts Online, we're digging into the incredible, unlikely origin story of how a twist of fate turned a fruity plant into the starchy tuber we all know and love. This isn't just a story about two vegetables. It's a story about the very nature of life, evolution, and the surprising connections hidden in our dinner plates. To truly understand the story of the tomato and potato, we need to rewind the clock. Not just a few thousand years, but over 100 million years ago, to the Cretaceous period. The world was a very different place, a planet of dinosaurs, dominated by non-flowering plants like conifers, cycads, and ferns. But something new, something revolutionary, was beginning to emerge. It was a phenomenon that the great naturalist Charles Darwin himself famously described as an abominable mystery. He was talking about the sudden and explosive arrival of Angiosperms, the flowering plants. These botanical newcomers possessed a revolutionary set of traits. They had flowers to attract pollinators, like insects and fruits, to protect and disperse their seeds. This innovation proved to be a complete game changer. The fossil record shows that around 100 million years ago, there was a sudden explosion of flowering plant diversity, a period now known as the Cretaceous Terrestrial Revolution. This rapid diversification, which so puzzled Darwin, was likely fueled by a co-evolutionary arms race with insects and other animals, creating intricate relationships between pollinators and plants. At the same time, the Earth's continents were breaking apart, creating new climates and isolated environments where these new plants could adapt and thrive. It was within this dynamic, changing world that the stage was set for the emergence of a particularly successful and diverse family of flowering plants, the Solanaceae. The Solanaceae, more commonly known as the nightshade family, is a massive and diverse group of over 2,700 species. This family is a household name, even if you don't recognize the scientific term. It includes not only tomatoes and potatoes, but also eggplants, all kinds of peppers from sweet bells to fiery habaneros, and even non-edibles like tobacco and petunias. The family's origins are rooted in South America, a continent that served as a cradle for its incredible diversification. While the fossil record for the family is a bit sparse, we know that deep in its evolutionary past, something truly extraordinary happened. Approximately 81 million years ago, long before the major subfamilies diverged, a common ancestor of this group underwent what scientists call a whole genome triplication. Now, what does that mean? Imagine you have an organism's entire genetic blueprint, its full set of chromosomes. A whole genome triplication is when that entire blueprint gets copied not once, but twice, resulting in 3 full sets of genes. This massive influx of redundant genetic material is like giving evolution a giant sandbox full of spare parts to play with. Most of the extra genes are eventually lost, but some can mutate and take on brand new functions. This event provided a wealth of new genetic material for natural selection to act upon, setting the stage for the incredible diversity and innovation we see in the nightshade family today. This brings us to the central puzzle, the curious case of the potato. For a very long time, the close relationship between tomatoes and potatoes was a bit of a scientific head-scratcher. Morphologically, that is, based on its physical form and structure, the potato plant bears a striking resemblance to a group of wild, non-tuber-bearing species from Chile called tuberosum. They have similar leaves and overall plant structure, but when scientists looked at the potato's genetics, they found it was much more closely related to tomatoes. This contradiction, this discordance between its looks and its genes, hinted at a far more complex evolutionary story. How could a plant look like one relative but be genetically closer to another? The answer: finally unraveled by groundbreaking recent research, is a tale of an ancient and unlikely union. It turns out, the potato is the direct descendant of an ancient hybridization event. Around 8 to 9 million years ago, a wild ancestor of the tomato hybridized or crossbred with a plant from that tuberosum lineage. Genetic analysis gets even more specific, suggesting the tomato ancestor acted as the mother in this ancient pairing, providing the ovule, while the tuberosum plant acted as the father, providing the pollen. This wasn't just a simple cross. It was an event that gave rise to an entirely new lineage, the one that would eventually become the potato. And crucially, this genetic merger unlocked the potential for a key innovation, the tuber. Think about that for a moment. Neither of the parent plants could make a potato. The ancestral tomato had its fruit, a berry designed for dispersal. The tuberosum plant had thin, non-swollen underground stems, known as stolons. It was the unique combination of their genes that unlocked the potential for this new, energy-rich storage organ. Two genes, in particular, were crucial for this to happen. A gene called SP6A, which was inherited from the tomato ancestor, acts as a powerful signal for tuberization. It's essentially the on switch that tells the plant, start making a tuber here. However, this gene only works its magic in concert with another gene, called IT1, which came from the tuberosum father. The IT1 gene controls the growth of those underground stolons, providing the physical structure, the location, where the tuber can actually develop. It was this perfect genetic partnership, a legacy of that ancient hybridization, that is the secret behind the potato's existence. One parent provided the signal, the other provided the platform, and together, they created something entirely new. Following this pivotal divergence, the evolutionary paths of the tomato and potato were shaped by very different selective pressures, leading to the distinct culinary powerhouses we know today. The potato, whose scientific name is Solanum tuberosum, focused its entire evolutionary strategy on perfecting the tuber. This adaptation proved highly advantageous in the high-altitude environments of the Andes Mountains, where the potato was first domesticated. The tuber is essentially a modified underground stem that stores immense amounts of starch and other nutrients. This underground energy pack allowed the plant to survive the harsh conditions and freezing winters of the Andes, resprouting when conditions improved. It also allowed for easy asexual reproduction. As any gardener knows, you can simply plant a piece of a potato, and as long as it has an eye, a new, genetically identical plant will grow. The potato put all its evolutionary energy into survival and storage beneath the soil. The tomato, Solanum lycopersicum, went in the complete opposite direction. It invested its energy above ground, in developing a fleshy, conspicuous fruit. The evolution of this fleshy fruit was a key adaptation for seed dispersal. The goal wasn't to bunker down and survive, but to entice animals to eat the fruit and carry the seeds far away, spreading them across the landscape in their droppings. The tomato's evolution has been a masterclass in marketing, developing vibrant colors, from red to yellow to purple, and complex flavors to become irresistible to dispersers. It's fascinating that even millions of years later, you can still see faint echoes of their shared ancestry. For instance, some heirloom tomato varieties are described by gardeners as potato-leaved because they have broader, smoother leaves that look much more like those of their starchy cousin. And on the flip side, after a potato plant flowers, it can sometimes produce small, green, tomato-like fruits. But whatever you do not eat them. These fruits are loaded with poisonous alkaloids like solanine and chaconine, a stark chemical reminder that while they share a common ancestor, their evolutionary paths have led them to very different places. The final, and perhaps most influential, chapter in the story of the tomato and potato is the one written by a human hand. Both of these incredible crops were domesticated in the Americas, but in different regions and at different times, shaped by the needs and tastes of early farmers. The potato was first domesticated in the Andean highlands of what is now southern Peru and northwestern Bolivia, somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 years ago. Early agriculturalists were brilliant practical botanists. They painstakingly selected wild potatoes, choosing plants that produced larger tubers and, critically, had lower levels of the toxic glycoalkaloids that make wild potatoes bitter and dangerous to eat. This process of selection, carried out over thousands of years, led to the incredible diversity of potatoes still found in the Andes today, with thousands of unique cultivars adapted to different altitudes, soils, and climates. The tomato has a more winding and complex domestication history. Its wild ancestor, Solanum pimpinellifolium, is a tiny blueberry-sized fruit native to the coastal regions of western South America. From here, it's believed that a semi-domesticated cherry-sized tomato spread northward, possibly even without human help, all the way to Mesoamerica, the region of modern-day Mexico and Central America. It was here, around 7,000 years ago, that it was truly domesticated by cultures like the Aztecs, who called it tomatil. These Mesoamerican farmers are the ones we have to thank for selecting the traits that led to the larger fruited tomatoes we are familiar with today. Human selection in tomatoes has focused intensely on traits like fruit size, shelf life, and uniform ripening, but this has often come at a cost. In breeding for these commercial traits, many of the genes for disease resistance and stress tolerance found in their wild relatives were accidentally lost. So the evolutionary journey of the tomato and potato, from their shared origins in the explosive diversification of flowering plants to their dramatic divergence through a chance hybridization and their subsequent shaping by human hands, is a microcosm of the grander story of life on Earth. It is a story of innovation, of adaptation, and of the intricate, unpredictable dance between genes and the environment. The next time you find yourself enjoying a plate of fries with a side of ketchup, or a baked potato next to a fresh garden salad, take a moment to appreciate the millions of years of evolutionary history that brought these unlikely cousins to your table. Their story is not just a scientific curiosity, it's a profound reminder of the deep and often surprising ways in which our world and the food we eat have come to be. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online.